Greetings, Poke People! Ichigo90 here, and today we are going to play Pokemon Emerald with only Slakoth. The rules are the same as they always are. We're going to pick Slakoth as our starter, and then only that Slakoth will be allowed to battle. Any other Pokemon on our team must be purely for traversing the overworld or our Sapphire. If Slakoth faints, we have to either reset to our last save or allow all other Pokemon on the team to faint without winning the battle. We will not use items in battle, with the exception of held items. The game starts and we grab a Slakoth from the professor's bag, and we immediately engage in battle with the Zigzagoon that the professor was running from for some reason. So a scratch leaves Zigzagoon at yellow health, and then Truant immediately starts becoming annoying as we can't do anything. But it's fine because Zigzagoon's tackle does nothing, and Scratch takes out Zigzagoon. Professor Birch is so grateful to us for saving him from the wild Zigzagoon that he gives us the Slakoth, and we name it Colepus. So with Slakoth now under our care, we jump straight over to the Brendan battle. He of course sends out his Torchic against Colepus and uses Growl as his opening attack. So we select Scratch because we actually want to win. However, Scratch isn't doing all that much to Torchic, and we can't attack on consecutive turns. So we eventually use Yawn while Torchic keeps growling at us, and he takes us down to about half before he falls asleep, and stays asleep while Scratch takes it down below half, and this battle is showing just how annoying this challenge is going to be, as there are multiple turns where a combination of sleep and Truant cause nothing to happen. However, we do eventually win because we attack and do damage while he just growls. This battle made it very clear that Truant was going to be the biggest source of annoyance in this entire run. And if we were going to be unable to attack every other turn, we were going to have to do as much damage as we possibly could on turns that we could attack. So I did what any sane person who cares about their mental health would do. I ran back and forth in the grass on Route 101 and killed 252 Poochyena. Then I killed an extra 15 because I don't trust myself to be able to accurately count nearly that high. So now that that's taken care of, we can finally progress in the game. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we have to stop on Route 102 to find a female Ralts, catch her, and name her Sapphire. So now that we have Sapphire, our most trusted companion, by our side, we can move forward and face the first major obstacle of our playthrough, Roxanne. Roxanne leaves off with Geodude, as she always does, and we send out Colepus against it, of course. However, things quickly turn downhill for us as Scratch, which is our only damaging move at the time, doesn't even scratch the Geodude. And we end up losing miserably against... Anyway, after that disaster, I decided to build up some bulk on Colepus, and went to the Rust Turf Tunnel and grinded against the Whismur that live in there. Thankfully, Slakoth learns Feint Attack at level 19, and because the physical special split has not happened yet, Feint Attack is a special move in this gen. So even though Calypus' physical attack is much higher, after factoring in resistances and defense curl, Feint Attack will actually do more than Scratch. So the rematch with Roxanne started as it always does, with her sending out her Geodude. So the first thing we did was have Calypus use Yawn to make it drowsy, and it's opened up with Defense Curl. However, that Defense Curl is not going to matter very much, and before it fell asleep, it managed to drop some rocks on us and lower our speed. That's going to be annoying, but what can you do? And it was time to bust out our secret weapon, Feint Attack. As I mentioned earlier, Feint Attack is special in this gen, so it ignores the defense curl. And using this strategy by no means made the fight easy. Calypus has an abysmal special attack, but it was far more effective than trying to scratch the rocks apart, and the Geodude fell after a couple of turns. The second Geodude came out, and a huge problem with trying to solo this game with Slakoth became readily apparent. Any trainer that has more than one Pokemon, the second round of battle will always open on a Truon's turn. Regardless, the second Geodude went for Defense Curl because that worked so well for the first one, and we were able to recover a ton of health using Slakoth, and then Feint Attack, well, it made the Geodude faint. Now it's on to the final Pokemon that Roxanne uses, Nosepass. Nosepass's special defense is much higher than the other Geodude's, as is its attack. However, it likes to open up using Harden, and there's only about 5 minutes worth of using Yawn, Slakoth, and Feint Attack before the Nosepass finally went down, and I am not going to narrate this on the play-by-play. You can see what's happening. It's incredibly repetitive, incredibly annoying, and this is not going to be a fast or easy challenge in any way, but at the end of it, we still ended up getting the Stone Badge. Now, when it comes to Brawly, it initially looks like we have a decent matchup. Scratch does a lot of damage to Machop, and Machop just uses Bulk Up. However, Machop then uses Karate Chop while we can't do anything, and then Scratch fails to take out the Machop, probably due entirely to the defense boost from Bulk Up, and then Karate Chop takes us out. And following this defeat, I did the only sensible thing a person could do in this situation. I ran back and forth from Dewford to Rusturf Tunnel, battling Whismur, until I finally got a successful run against Brawly. So here's how that went. Brawly, of course, opened up by sending out Machop, and Calypus has replaced Scratch with Covet, which left Machop on just a sliver of health. We had to take a Truon's turn, but Brawly used that to use a Super Potion, which restored Machop up to full. However, I had Calypus use Covet again, and a higher damage roll resulted in Machop going down. And just like with Roxanne before, we start off the second round against Meditite on a Covet turn, which allows for Meditite to use Bulk Up, which is not ideal. However, Meditite then goes for Focus Punch, and Covet is actually able to take down Meditite in one hit. I don't know if that was a high roll or if Meditite just has lower defenses than Machop, but it doesn't really matter. We're up against Makuhita now. And after wasting our Truant turn on Bulk Up, Calepus is able to use Covet to do a ton of damage to Makuhita and use it and steal its Citrus Berry, which is actually very nice because Vital Throw hits us and does a ton of damage back to us, but we're able to use the Citrus Berry we just stole from Makuhita. Reversal takes us down to below half health again and would have taken us out had we not used exactly Covet. But when we can use Covet again, we knock out the Makuhita and secure the Knuckle Badge from Brawly. So after all of that, it's time to deliver a handwritten letter to the son of the man who invented what's basically Pokemon cell phones. And what do we get in return? The TM for Steel Wing, which we are completely incapable of using. Thanks, I guess? So anyway, the next item on our agenda is to deliver the Devon goods to Captain Stern. But just as we're about to do that, a couple of Team Aqua Bozos barge in and challenge us to a battle. The first one only has a Carvanha, which Calepus is able to handle pretty easily. That crit probably didn't even matter, to be honest, but we have to deal with the second one either way. And this one actually has two Pokemon. And the first of those Pokemon is a Zubat. Calepus is able to deal with that in a single shot of Covet, and then he sends his Carvanha out. So it manages to hit Calepus with Bite, and we tank that all day. And then it quickly falls to Covet, which shows that the crit earlier didn't matter. However, before the two grunts leave, they start making plans for what to do next, and make a Scooby-Doo reference, just before this guy called Archie comes strolling in and calls them simps for some reason, and then starts talking about water and asking if we're part of Team Magma, and then makes some thinly veiled threats which no one seems to care about. Anyway, it's time to make our way up to Mauville City, but on our way we have to go through Route 110 for what is normally the hardest rival battle in the game. Brendan opens up with Wingull, which uses Growl to lower our attack, which is not great since that's our only good source of damage, but it goes down anyway. Combuskin, however, uses Double Kick, which really hurts. And even though Covet deals a ton of damage to Combuskin, it might be too little too late, as we are well within KO range and on the next turn. But then it goes for Focus Energy for some reason, which allows Covet to take it out. I cannot think of a single good reason why that just happened, but here we are. Lombre is the final Pokemon we have to deal with here, and it hits us with Swift, which does nothing. So we are able to use Slakoth to restore a bunch of health and lose into a crit, and Absorb does barely more than Swift did, actually. And when we're able to finally land a Covet, it takes it out from full. We never get a first try victory here, and we wouldn't have gotten it now if Combuskin had taken the kill when it had the chance to. But before we can celebrate too much, we have to defeat Watson. And that's not going to be easy to do. Watson opened up with Voltorb, which Colipus was able to easily handle with a crit one-shot of Covet after tanking a Shockwave. And then the Electrike came out, which we could handle without any issues. Despite us having to be in a Truant turn, he opens with Howl, which does nothing. I don't even know why that move exists. But then we ran into a problem with Magneton. It just outsped us and hit way too hard, and there was nothing we were able to do against it. We just lost that battle. So I did the only reasonable thing that I could do. I went to the game corner to get enough coins to buy Double Team so that I could avoid some of Watson's attacks. However, while doing that, I realized that Shockwave bypasses accuracy, so I need a different strategy. I did end up getting the TM for Double Team, just because I had a feeling that was going to be very useful later on. So it was time now to rematch against Watson. Watson opens up with his Voltorb, as he always does, and this time he manages to be the one who lands a crit.
If you could do SEO smarter and fast.
And we're able to take it out with Covet anyway, so that last crit probably didn't matter. Anyway, Electrike comes out next, and we're going to need to heal if we want to stand a chance against Magneton. So we start trying to put Electrike to sleep. And after taking a couple of shockwaves from it, we do manage to land a Yawn. And it goes to sleep not too long after, though if that shockwave had crit, we'd probably have lost. So we do eventually manage to heal ourselves up to full, and Covet takes out Electrike while it just uses Howl. And now it's time to take on the Magneton. Magneton opens up by hitting us with Thunder Wave. So now we're paralyzed. I don't like that. I don't like it one bit. However, it really doesn't matter because Magneton misses with Supersonic before going down to a crit Flamethrower. Yeah, they just sell Flamethrower TMs at the game corner. Anyway, it's time for Manectric. So the Lightning Doggo comes out and opens up by using Howl. Well, we can't really do anything this turn, but like I said, Howl doesn't do anything. It then hits us with Shockwave, which does not benefit from Howl at all. but then quickly fell to a second crit in a row from Calepus, this time in the form of Covet. Yeah, following up Howl with Shockwave is an interesting choice, but hey, we got the Dynamo badge, so let's just move on. So, before we can move on to the next badge, we have to make a detour through Meteor Falls. And while we're there, we find Team Magma harassing this professor guy over a rock. I don't know what's so special about this one in particular, and there's tons of rocks all over the place just lying around. Like surely they can pick up any of them if they really want one. But then Team Aqua crashes the party and starts arguing about a bunch of nonsense I don't care about. But we're off to Mount Chimney. And at Mount Chimney, we have to face off against Maxie. Maxie opens up with Mightyena, and its Intimidate ability lowers our attack, which could end up being a problem. So, of course, we use Yawn to try and put it to sleep. And eventually, we were able to defeat the Mightyena. But then Zubat comes in, and we need to heal. Now, I want to try to put Zubat to sleep first, which I do end up succeeding in, eventually. But it is a bit of a gamble, because either a crit or a high roll could have resulted in Calepus being taken out. But it pays off, and following that, it takes 5 full minutes to take this thing out. 5 minutes of using Yawn, Slakoth, Flamethrower, getting hit with Confusion, and on and on and on to take out a Zubat. This is going to be agony. And we're not even done yet, because Maxie still has his camera up. So we of course want to try to put it to sleep, but before it falls asleep, it lands a magnitude 7. Then he goes for an Ember before he finally falls asleep, meaning we have to use our first turn of him being asleep to heal. So thankfully he manages to stay asleep, and we're able to get off Covet, which does less than half. It's fine though. Maybe we can get a crit, we can still take him out before he wakes up. Well, we have to deal with True Haunt, but maybe this one will be a crit? Of course it's not. And Camerupt wakes up and hits us with another magnitude 7. Thank Helix, we healed when we had the chance. I briefly considered going for another Yawn, but Maxie didn't use a potion, and I don't think he'll take us out this turn. And Camerupt just casually hits us with a magnitude 8. But we do defeat the Camerupt, which was extremely annoying, but we can finally move on. So the next gym that we have to deal with is Flannery's. And it initially seemed like we were doing pretty good. We got by Numel and Slugma without a whole lot of difficulty. However, Camerupt came out and ended attempt number 1 with a single use of Overheat. So we did a bunch of grinding and came back for another attempt. This time around, we've replaced Covet with Return, and we gave Colippus a silk scarf to hold. And as you can see, Return is able to one-shot the Numel, which means that she's going to send out Slugma next, and it misses with Smog as we just loaf around before being one-shot by Return. But that really only means that it's time to face our old friend Camerupt. Now this time around, it's going to set up Sunny Day, which could be annoying. However, we get to move on the next turn. We outspeed and use Return, and it's a one-shot. So now there's only Torkoal left to deal with. And we loaf around because of Truants. And we barely survive an overheat. Now the good news is its special attack fell, but it's holding a White Herb. So we can't even rely on surviving a weakened overheat, so we just have to hope that Return takes out the Torkoal, and we got a crit one-shot. Did the crit matter? Probably. But we have the heat badge either way. So we can go straight from Flannery to Norman. And against Norman, things actually start off pretty great. Of course, we've seen that before. Spinda opens up with Psybeam, and we tank the hit no problem. And then we Oko Spinda with Return. However, Slaking was a different story. Colippus just wasn't able to deal with it. It opened up with Facade, which dealt about half damage to us, and it all just went downhill from there. So we have to try again. And the successful battle started off the same way. Colippus tanked a hit of Psybeam from Spinda, and then took the Spinda out with Return. The key difference is that Slaking did not go for Facade on its opening turn. It went for Counter. Which meant that we were able to get off a Yawn on the next turn, and what's interesting here is that Colippus and Slaking trade Truant turns, which we can actually use to our advantage. So Colippus is able to use a Return while Slaking is sleeping, and it does over half, which activated the Citrus Berry. Now, Slaking wakes up here and uses Facade. We're done for, so it's worth it to try and heal. And Slaking wakes up not long after that, but it's loafing around. And that allows for Colippus to take out the Slaking with Return. And that's going to bring out the Vigoroth, which opens up with Slash, and it misses the crit. It hits us with Facade, but that doesn't do anything to us, and Colippus is able to take it out. Yes, that was a crit. I don't know if it mattered, but whatever. We're on to Linoon, and it gets a crit with Slash. We're not really in any danger, and then it uses Belly Drum, which does half of our work for us and return wins us the battle against Norman, and the balance badge is ours. So, did that crit against Vigoroth matter? Maybe. So we're off to the Fortree Gym next, but we have to make a detour to the Weather Institute and deal with Team Aqua. So as we fight against this woman who is not Magma Admin Courtney, she opens up with a Carvanha, which goes down quickly to return. Then she sends out Mightyena and Intimidate activates, so we're at -1 attack, which could be annoying. But as we do our Truant turn, Mightyena uses Swagger, which not only cancels out the Intimidate, but puts our attack at +1. And while Mightyena does manage to get a flinch from bites, followed by 2 more flinches in a row from bite, on top of the obligatory turns where we can't move at all because of our terrible ability, we take out Mightyena with a single return and win the battle. I'm just saying, Courtney wouldn't have made the mistake of using Swagger on a Pokemon that she had just intimidated. She's smarter than that. Just be Courtney. So, after all of that, we go off to Fortree City, but as we enter Route 119, we're challenged to another rival battle. Brendan opens up with Pelipper, which uses Protect because of course it does. And it uses another Protect in a row. But it uses Supersonic on the next turn, and we break through the confusion to take out Pelipper with Return. So, up next is Combuskin, who decides to open the round by throwing sand in our face, which just rude. And then we end up hitting ourselves in confusion for some reason, as Combuskin uses Bulk Up, and of course then he uses Bulk Up. So we break through the confusion and use Return, which is going to not take it out. And Combuskin uses another Bulk Up. And Combuskin finally decides to attack by using Double Kick, which we survive with 12 HP somehow. Of course, we outspeed, snap out of confusion, and get a crit with Return, which has never mattered less than it did here, and would have been much nicer to have on the last turn. But anyway, it's on to Lombre, who opens up with Fake Outs, which we survive on 6 HP. But of course we're able to remove that on the next turn and use Slakoth, and then it just proceeds to do absolutely nothing with Absorb, and we take out Lombre with Return. And I believe that's the last rival battle in the game. There's not too many rival battles here. So, we can finally challenge Winona to a gym battle. And things started off relatively well. We were able to outspeed and one-shot the Swablu. And we even made it all the way to Altaria, our final Pokemon. But then we were taken down by Aerial Ace. It took multiple attempts before we finally got a successful run. And we already know here that Swablu is a one-shot with return, so we can just skip over that and go straight to Tropius. And Tropius hit us with an aerial ace, but it didn't actually do all that much, and it was then promptly taken down by return, just like Swablu was. Now, return is a really good move, and you get it fairly early on. But then, Pelipper, which uses Supersonic, which it misses twice. And then it goes down to return. Yeah, Brendan's Pelipper was a lot more annoying. Anyway, Skarmory is up next, and it opens by using Steel Wing, which is pretty decent, actually. But then it decides to be obnoxious and use Sand Attack. But yeah, this is just going to be an annoying battle where Sand Attack causes my moves to miss, and then we have to stop and heal, and he just chips away at our health. But we do eventually land a flamethrower and take out Skarmory. And it's on to Altaria, which immediately starts dancing around the battlefield like it's already won, even though it hasn't yet. So, but, once we're finally able to move again, we use Return, and despite all of Skarmory's sand attacks, Return not only hits, but takes out the Altaria. So the Feather Badge is ours, and we've proven once again that dancing is not a battle strategy. Anyway, we have 6 badges now. And before we can do the 7th, we have to have a rematch with Maxie, which goes terribly and ends with us losing to hitting ourselves in confusion. Alright then, time for attempt number 2. And that's going to open with Mightyena using Swagger, which confuses us again and gives us a net +1 to our attack stat. However, things go slightly differently this time around as we break through the confusion and Oko the Mightyena. We're already off to a better start than we were last time. So Mightyena is going to be replaced with Crobat, and it's going to open up by using Air Cutter, which does pretty negligible damage, honestly. So it goes for Wing Attack next, which does more than what Air Cutter did, but Return does even more than that by taking the Crobat out completely. So now it's on to our old buddy Camerupt. This thing has been so annoying in the past, but it opens up with Amnesia, which has no effect whatsoever. And we break through confusion one more time, and Return takes out the Camerat. But we're not able to go to Moss Deep yet because we still have to do the Aqua Hideout nonsense. Alright, so when we get to the Aqua Hideout, this random admin who isn't even given a name opens up with Mighty Anna. The very first time we've seen anybody do that in this entire game. And he opens up with Swagger. The very first time anyone's ever used that strategy in this entire game. And this time we hit ourselves. But Mighty Anna continues messing around, not doing any further damage, until we're able to eventually take out the Mighty Anna with a single hit. Which is going to bring out Golbat, who proves to be more annoying than difficult. Yeah, we're not really in any danger from most of this fight. Although there is one point where we're left with just 1 HP, so I guess we were sort of in danger, kind of. But we are able to survive, and then we use Slakoth to heal a ton of HP, and then from there it's only a matter of time before we're able to finally attack. And when we do, we take out Golbat with Return. And up next for the Aqua Admin is nothing. We just won the battle there. See, this is why Team Aqua is always going to fail. The admins are just terrible. Like, the Team Magma's admin, Courtney, would not have underestimated her opponents like this. That's why Team Magma is always going to defeat Team Aqua. But anyway, we can finally battle Tate and Liza. And on the first attempt, we end up doing pretty terribly. It ends as soon as Xatu is able to attack, and it hits Calypus with Psychic. And the second attempt ends up being where battles really start to get stupidly long. We begin by trying to set up double team until we're at +6 evasion, occasionally taking breaks to heal with Slakoth. And Sapphire is there primarily because we just need to have 2 Pokemon in order to do this gym, so she's basically moral support. Anyway, the main strategy here is to avoid getting hit by Xatu specifically. Xatu is just able to take us out with 1 hit if it lands, especially after using the Calm Mind that it likes to open with. And we can survive Claydol. But if Claydol hits us, we're fine. It's not going to take us out, actually. We've done this plenty of times. We know what to avoid. We know what we can tank. And eventually, we do hit Xatu with Return.
Secret is a secret right away.
And that crit actually didn't matter. Like I said, I've done this battle multiple times. That Slakoth is just able to take out Xatu with return. It's just, if it gets hit by more than like 2 attacks in one turn, it goes down because its defenses are terrible. So Lunatone manages to go down to Shadow Ball. Its rock typing resists return, but we can get Shadow Ball at Mount Pyre. And the good thing is, Shadow Ball is physical in this gen because of reasons. I don't know why Ghost was ever physical. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But either way, we have a physical move that's super effective against the psychic typing that this gym has. So that's good for us, I guess. Anyway, Soul Rock is a little bit annoying. It manages to survive Shadow Ball. It ends up KOing Sapphire. 07, by the way. And God, this battle is just so annoying. It takes so long. And it's just the same stuff happening over and over and over. And there's so many turns where just nothing happens. But eventually, Soul Rock goes down. And Claydol is just annoying. We use Shadow Ball, Tate and Liza heal. We use Shadow Ball again, Tate and Liza heal. But eventually, we win the battle. And we get the Mind Bag. Yeah, someone at Game Freak really said, let's have a physical move that lowers special defense. And the idea was approved. Like, I don't understand that. Anyway, before we can move on, we have to deal with this double battle with Steven and the Team Magma guys. Yeah, Maxie brought admin Tabitha instead of admin Courtney, so he's basically already lost. But anyway, it's not too long before Tabitha's camera up goes down. And so now Calepus is under the effects of 2 Intimidates, basically cutting its attack in half. While Metang has Clear Body, somehow. Yeah, we're just going to be over here using double teams for a while. And Metang does manage to actually be useful. He's not normally this helpful. So one of the Mighty Ennis goes down and Crobat comes out and we start using returns. And Crobat lives on very little red HP. And Metang takes out the Crobat, which brings out Maxie's Camerupt. So I'm going to use Slakoth to restore some HP, and Mighty Enna uses Roar. So now Aggron is out, and it's not being helpful. Another annoying battle. Anyway, Camerupt goes down to a crit return, so now it's a 2v1, but Aggron just keeps spamming Protect. And it's not going to do anything. Stop using Protect. actually attack? Well, he sort of follows my advice, because he keeps trying to use thunder, no matter how many times it misses. But Caleepus is able to eventually use Return on Golbat, and we win the battle entirely on our own. But we can't go to the 8th gym just yet. There's still a few things that we're forced to do before that happens. The first of those is fighting Archie, which is really the only time we do that. It's weird. We fight Maxie 3 separate times, but we only fight Archie once. Anyway, he opens up with Mightyena, which is an extremely original and unexpected choice. And we open up with Double Team and get hit with Takedown in the process. But we don't just spam it 6 times. We don't really need to. We just need to maybe avoid a few attacks during the battle, which one will be sufficient for. So we do get hit with Swagger, which is nice. It's always nice when our attack is increased by our opponent. So Crobat comes in next and hits us with Bite, which doesn't do very much, really. But the second one is going to take us to about half. But no matter, because Return is going to take out the Crobat entirely. And that really only leaves the Sharpedo. So Sharpedo comes in and uses Slash, and we're not too worried about that, honestly. It fails to get the crits, and then it uses Taunt. Which, what does Taunt even do? Well, I'll tell you what it does. It allows Caleepus to take out Sharpedo with Return. And that was a first try victory against Archie, which is embarrassing, honestly. But even though we won the battle, he lights up the red orb and wakes up Kyogre, who flies off somewhere, which doesn't even make any sense. It was at the back of a cave. How did it get out? Where did it go? Like, can you just imagine this giant whale thing just flying through a cave? What would that even look like? Yeah, Pokemon logic is going to Pokemon logic sometimes. Anyway, back in Slateport City, this is happening. The giant dinosaur thing fighting a giant... How did they get in here? Like, Kyogre somehow got from the back of a cave to here, and Groudon... I don't even know how Groudon would have got there. But it really doesn't matter, because this giant snake thing is going to fly in and scream, I guess? It looks intimidating. So anyway, we've managed to save the day. And it's finally time for the 8th gym leader, which ended terribly. And we actually ended up taking ourselves out without doing a single thing to the love disc. So attempt number 2 and 3 and 4 and a bunch of them. I stopped counting. And this ended up being another battle where we maxed out our evasion and used Slakoth to heal a bunch while doing so, and now, despite all of the double teams, Love Disc still managed to hit us with sweet kisses and water pulses, and it was just an annoying time all around. Like, how many double teams have we used so far, and it's still landing a sweet kiss? So annoying. And Truant is not helping. I mean, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to balance out slaking. But why does Slakoth have it? Well, regardless, we are eventually going to attack. Eventually. Alright, that was the last double team. We heal ourselves back up to full with Slakoth. We use Return, and Love Disc is down. And Whiskash comes out and is considerably less annoying to deal with. It does manage somehow to survive Return on just a sliver of HP. But it spent the first couple of turns just using Amnesia. Juan was fully intent on being irritating himself, though, because he decided to use a Hyper Potion. This is just going to be an annoying battle. He continues using Amnesia, which is not going to do anything because we're not even using special attacks here. You're a physical attacker. Why are you doing this? Well, I guess the less he attacks us, the better we are. But eventually Whiskash falls to Shadow Ball, which brings out Celio. Celio is going to try his best, but he misses Water Pulse. And then Return lands, and it crit. Did that matter? Maybe. But we finally KO'd one of Juan's Pokemon in one hit, and in under a minute. So now there's just 2 Pokemon left, and Crawdaunt misses with its Crab Hammer, and then missed with Taunts, which was intended to do something, I guess. But Crawdaunt does eventually land an attack, and it's going to be Leer. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. That Shadow Ball puts Crawdaunt into range to be taken out by Return, so it's on to Kingdra. And Kingdra loved our double team strategy so much that it opens up using its own double team. And then it manages to not only hit a water pulse through 6 double teams, but picks up the confusion, which is going to cause Calypus to hit itself. Then Kingdra misses its Ice Beam, which is nice, and then it misses with Water Pulse before being hit with Return. And Return is going to leave Kingdra at yellow health. But it looks like Kingdra's just barely out of healing range because Juan doesn't use any more Hyper Potions. Kingdra misses 2 Ice Beams in a row, and Calypus finally snaps out of confusion and picks up the KO. And the Rain Badge is finally ours after 10 million attempts. Now it would be nice if we could go straight to the Elite Four after all of that, but Wally wants to challenge us to a battle in Victory Road. A battle which he initially wins because both the Altaria that he opens with and Delcatty have moves that bypass accuracy checks. But after many attempts, we figure out a winning strategy. It starts off with us using Double Team against Altaria, which opens up by using Dragon Dance, and then paralyzing us with Dragon Breath, which is not great, but we get the second double team off anyway. And the second step in the strategy is to heal because it's managed to buff up its attack too much at this point, and I don't want to risk anything. And Aerial Ace is doing more than I want it to, but it decides it wants to dance around a little bit and continue buffing its attack and speed, but despite Aerial Ace doing a ton of damage, Return is able to take it out in one hit. And this is where things end up getting stupid. The Delcatty has Feint Attack, which is special, as we know from the beginning of the game, and it bypasses accuracy checks. So all of these double teams are not for Delcatty. It's just that Delcatty's special attack isn't anything special, so we can survive a bunch of them. However, Delcatty also has Assist, which lets it do things it otherwise wouldn't be able to. And we still have to use Slakoth a bunch of times while setting up our evasion, because unlike Calypus, Delcatty is able to attack every turn. And let's not forget the whole you were paralyzed and unable to move thing that we have to deal with. But after about 5 or more minutes of messing around with setting up, we are going to be able to take out the Delcatty. It's just a matter of time. And there we go, Delcatty's down. And out comes Magneton, the biggest source of annoyance aside from the paralysis that Altaria left us with. We end up getting confused, and because of all the setting up we were able to do against Delcatty, Magneton does miss its Thunderbolts, which is always nice. Screech, not so much though. But we were eventually able to hit return, and Magneton managed to live on yellow HP because of course it did. So Magneton misses its Thunderbolt, we end up loafing around, it misses another Thunderbolt, and we're confused. But we break through it and land another return, and Magneton is defeated. And Roselia comes out and has Magical Leaf, which is another accuracy bypasser. Because of course it is. But Roselia only manages to get off a couple of them before Calepus snaps out of confusion and uses Return to take out Roselia. And there's just one Pokemon remaining, the Gardevoir. It uses Future Sight, which doesn't do anything before missing the Psychic, which is really great for us. And Calepus breaks through Paralysis to take out the Gardevoir. 07's for Gardevoir. But it's on to the Elite Four for us. Now, the first attempt at the Elite Four goes just as well as the first attempt for most of the battles so far. We end up getting taken out by Mighty Inno without really being able to do anything against it. However, as you can probably guess from the fact you're watching this video, we did eventually manage to defeat Sydney. It just took a few tries. After grinding Calepus up to level 69, haha nice, we are able to take out Mighty Inno with the single return, although we did get hit with the Sand Attack in the process, and there was a crit involved. But we'll never know whether or not it mattered. Shiftry comes out, and while we can't move here, Shiftry uses Swagger, which raises our attack by 2 stages, canceling out Mighty Inno's Intimidate and leaving us with a net +1 in our attack. And we manage to get off a double team, but he does as well. And because he's actually able to move on consecutive turns, he's going to be able to set up a second double team. Still, he uses a Torment, and we're then left not being able to use the same move twice in a row, not even being able to select it on our low turns, which is kind of annoying. I was hoping to set up max evasion here. But regardless, despite all of the double teams that Shiftry sets up, we managed to eventually land a return, and Calepus takes out Shiftry. So now, it's on to the Cacturn. And Cacturn manages to land a Needle on on us, which is going to be quite a lot of damage. And it has Feint Attack. Because of course it has Feint Attack, why wouldn't it? Luckily I had selected Slakoth, and that timing could not have been better. So his next Needle Arm manages to miss, and we will finally snap out of confusion and land a return, which will end up taking out the Cacturn. So the Crawdaunt is up next, and we still can't select the same move twice in a row, even when we can't actually move. But the Crawdaunt misses its surf, so we're fine. And when Crawdaunt goes for Sword Stance, we're able to safely recover with Slakoth. But our luck can't continue forever, and Crawdaunt manages to hit with Surf, which leaves us with slightly more than half. Regardless, we're able to use Return again, and that is going to finish off the Crawdaunt. So now there's just Absol left. And we can't attack right away, both because of Torment and Truant. And Absol lands a crit Rock Slide, which we barely survive. So we go for Slakoth just in case. And Absol outspeeds us, but thankfully misses with Slash. And shortly after that, Cleopas is able to land a return on Absol, and it will crit one-shot. We've beaten Sydney. Did that crit matter? Honestly, probably not. Absol's defense is pretty low. But it's on to the second Elite Four member. Phoebe specializes in ghost types, so Return is completely out of the question. However, Ghost and Normal have an interesting relationship in being immune to each other, so we don't need to worry about their Shadow Balls or anything. So the first Dusclops loves to open by using Protect, so we take advantage of that to set up a double team, but then Dusclops continues to use Protect, and the first Shadow Ball we used was avoided. But Protect just can't be used over and over again. It's not intended to, and eventually we land a Shadow Ball that takes out the Dusclops. So Banette comes up next, and Cleopas pretends it uses the Hyper Beam last turn while Banette uses Grudge. But Banette does not have Protect, so the next turn Shadow Ball is able to take it out. Now Sableye comes out next, and it tries its best by setting up a couple of double teams while we're unable to move. And it actually manages to outspeed us somehow, but that doesn't matter. Cleopas manages to land a Shadow Ball, and it gets a crit one-shot. I have no idea if that mattered. Sableye's defenses are not that great, but whatever. The second Banette comes out and manages to land a Thunderbolt. And then it outspeeds and lands another Thunderbolt. But that's not good enough, and Shadow Ball is able to take it out. That's 4 Pokemon down, and all that remains is the second Dusclops. It manages to land an Ice Beam, which we survive in red health. But we managed to outspeed and land a Shadow Ball, and now we are officially halfway through the Elite Four. On to Glacia. Now, Glacia specializes in Ice-type Pokemon, and 3 of her Pokemon are Steel, which has a secondary Water typing. Meaning that both of their stab moves are special, which we kind of stink against. So, we have to set up a few double teams to help our odds of getting through this battle alive. But the first Celio sets up Hail. Actually, I think all of her Pokemon have Hail. But regardless, we do get hit a few times, meaning that we have to take a little bit of time to use Slakoth in order to heal before we're able to safely do anything. However, the hail eventually stops and Celio stops its attacks to set the hail back up, but eventually we are set up enough and we start to attack. Now, did that crit matter? Probably. These things do have decent bulk. Regardless, the first Glalie comes out to replace the Celio, and it sets up a light screen while we're immobile, and then it outspeeds and uses Ice Beam, which manages to get the freeze, but we defrost immediately because that's a thing that can happen, and took out Glalie with the crit return. Yeah, we're getting a lot of crits in this run. Like, is that just a thing that Slakoth can do? I don't know. But the second Celio comes out next and tries to hit us with Blizzard, which misses. And then we're able to use Slakoth to recover a bunch. But before we're able to take it out, it sets Hail back up. Because, of course it did. That was kind of annoying, honestly. But we are eventually able to use Return, and that will take out the Celio. No crit necessary. Meaning that the crit against the first Celio probably didn't matter either. That's good information to have, I guess. But now it's time for the second Glalie, which misses with its first Ice Beam. We're loafing around and Hail. But what's going to happen next? We're able to attack and it lands its second Ice Beam. So even though we will take out the Glalie in one hit, we're at 24 HP going into Walrein. Walrein is incredibly powerful, it's incredibly tanky, and we do have a few double teams set up, which is nice, because it misses its Body Slam while we fail to take it out with Return. So now we're at 11 HP, and it misses its attacks, and we take out Wall Rain and defeat Glacia. So now we're 3/4 of the way through the Elite Four. Did we get lucky here? Absolutely, but either way, we're on to Drake. Drake, as you might expect, specializes in dragon types. Very powerful dragon types. Meaning we're going to be using more cringe double team strats. Now, Shelgon likes to spam Protect for some reason, which isn't going to do much while we're setting up double teams. But he does manage to get a few hits in while we're doing this, but it's nothing we can't heal with Slakoth. So, in the end, though, we will manage to get through this. There's the Slakoth. There's more double teams. Now, call me cringe if you want, but Slakoth does not have particularly good defenses. So there's the return, and we got a crit, and we're on to Altaria, which knows Aerial Ace, which can't miss. But that's not quite good enough, because after return, it's going to be left with just a little bit of health left. And for some reason, Drake chooses not to heal, which means that Shadow Ball is going to take out Altaria. Now we're on to the next Pokemon, which is his Kingdra. I briefly considered going for Slakoth here, but in the end I decide it's better to just go for damage. But Kingdra manages to live on red health somehow. And seeing that, I decide that maybe Slakoth is worth it. Fortunately, Kingdra has missed multiple of its attacks in a row. And Slakoth is going to restore most of our health. So we start going for a Shadow Ball, and Drake is still not healing. I have no idea what he's up to over there. But Shadow Ball is going to hit Kingdra despite all the dancing it's doing. And now we're on to Flygon. There's just a couple Pokemon left, and Flygon manages to somehow land a crit flamethrower. Yeah, it's a good thing that we used Slakoth when we did. And we're going to need to do that again. Now, luckily, Flygon misses its Dragon Breath, and we manage to heal. And Flygon manages to miss the next 2 of its flamethrowers, which is really good for us. It would be much better if this return took out the Flygon, but no such luck. And Drake finally goes for a full restore just to be annoying. But now we know that if we hit it with a Shadow Ball, that will put it in range for return to take it out next time we're able to use that move. But Flygon manages to land another flamethrower, and we're going to have to use Slakoth before we take it out. Okay, flamethrower missed. Colipus used Slakoth. And what are we going to do now? We're going to get hit with Flamethrower. But you know what? Just screw it. Let's just go ahead and take out the Flygon now while we have the chance. There's Return, and that's definitely taking it out. And now there's just one Pokemon left. The Salamence, which has Intimidate, which activates on Switch In. And we are running ridiculously low on power points. And there's Return. Will it take out Salamence? No, of course not. We've been hit by Intimidate, and Salamence is a pseudo-legend. But that did force it to eat its Citrus Berry, and it did do over half. It misses its Dragon Claw, and what's Return gonna do? It's going to take us to the champion. That's what it's going to do. So now it's time to face Champion Wallace. Yeah, the Hoenn games have a rival named Wally and a notable trainer named Wallace. There's Wally and Wallace in the same games. I don't know how that ended up happening. But regardless, we have to deal with this whale, this whale. That's a Wailord, Ichigo. What are you? Learn to read. Anyway, Wallace is a water type specialist with a lot of really powerful special type moves that could easily OHKO us if they hit. So we need to set up double team while we have the chance. And Wailord has Water Spout, which has a fluctuating base power that is dependent on the user's HP. And Wailord has a lot of HP. So we have to keep that low enough that we can survive Water Spout if we're going to do anything. And while we were in the process of that, Wailord took itself out with Recoil from Double Edge. And of course, Wailord going down brings out Tentacruel, which has Toxic, which we really do not want to get hit by, because there's no way we're doing this through toxic damage. Luckily, Tentacruel goes down after missing a couple of Hydro Pumps, and out comes Ludicolo. This thing is more irritating than difficult to deal with, so we set up the last couple of double teams that we weren't able to use earlier, and following that we start selecting Return, which manages to hit and leaves Ludicolo on red. And Wallace uses a full restore because of course he did. Anyway, we eventually land a Shadow Ball, and then a Return is going to end this round of the battle. And then Whiscash is going to come out and be only slightly less annoying than Ludicolo. It uses a couple of Amnesias before narrowly surviving a Return, at which point Wallace decides he's going to use full restore again. No matter, we know that Shadow Ball will take it into range to be taken out by Return, but Whiscash somehow lands a Surf, which means we're going to need to use Slakoth. But no matter, we land the next Return and Whiscash goes down. So there's only 2 Pokemon left now, and one of them is Gyarados, which has the Intimidate ability. But he wastes his free Truant turn by using Dragon Dance. And then he misses with Hyper Beam, and Return gets a crit, which takes out Gyarados. So now there's only one Pokemon left, and that is Milotic, which does not qualify as a Gyarados clone at all. What are you even talking about? So it misses a couple of Surfs before getting hit with Return, which looks like it's doing about half. We use Slakoth just in case it lands a crit, but it misses its Surf, and then Return hits and leaves Milotic on red HP. Alright, so Wallace uses a full restore, and we go for Shadow Ball just to knock off a few points, and maybe Return will get the KO next time. Well, we get hit with Toxic, but at this point that's too little too late, because we just need a couple more hits of Return, and there we go. We've defeated Wallace, and we've officially become champion. But you guys know we can't leave it at that. We can't leave it at Wallace. We can't be satisfied by defeating some pretender to the throne. There's only one champion in the Hoenn region, and his name isn't Wallace. Wallace is an 8th gym leader. We need to defeat Steven Stone. So we make our way to the back of Meteor Falls and challenge the real champion to a battle. He opens up with Skarmory, which could easily become a problem as it knows both Aerial Ace and Toxic. And if it hits with Toxic, we're just done. But we set up a couple of double teams to minimize the chances of that happening. And it does go for Toxic a few times, but it misses. Then we begin to Flamethrower Skarmory until it goes down, and we've replaced Silk Scarf with Flamethrower, and we replaced Silk Scarf with Leftovers. And we get a little bit lucky as Flamethrower burns the Skarmory at the KO range. But that only serves to bring out our Maldo, which is another huge obstacle. Its rock typing makes Flamethrower do neutral damage because it's a rock bug and yada-da. It also has Shell Armor, which makes crits impossible, and beyond that it has Aerial Ace, which makes Double Team not exist. Basically, we really want Shadow Ball to lower our Maldos to death to maximize the damage that Flamethrower does. And we may also want to get a burn on it to minimize the damage our Maldo's physical attacks can do. But ultimately what ends up happening is neither of those things, but we do take it out with Shadow Ball. That's 2 Pokemon down, and we're on to Claydol. And Claydol is our best chance to finish setting up the double teams that we want. And that's most of the reason why this part of the battle against Steven took as long as it did. That combined with the fact that Claydol kept managing to hit us even through all the double teams that we had already set up. No, we had to stop using double team, go for Slakoth, stop using it again, go for Slakoth again. But we did eventually manage to get Slakoth's evasion maxed out. Though I really would have liked for it to go a little bit faster than it did. Basically, this was incredibly annoying, and I did not enjoy it at all. Still, one more double team. Okay, seriously, we had 5 double teams set up and it still landed Earthquake. What on earth? Well, Ancient Power missed, Slakoth went off, and we're up to 166 HP. We're regaining a little bit every turn thanks to the leftovers. And now we can go on the offensive and start hitting Claydol with Shadow Balls. And we finally make it through, and now we're on to Aggron. And Aggron, despite being a Steel type, is actually neutral to Flamethrower because of the Rock typing. And as if that wasn't enough of a problem, its defenses are high enough that Flamethrower barely does anything, and the Solar Beam that it somehow manages to hit did a huge amount of damage. But we are able to heal up, and maybe Shadow Ball drops the Spadef. Will that be enough to make Flamethrower decent? Well, we did get a burn, which is always nice to see. And it is still such a nightmare to go against. We managed to get it down to almost being defeated, but then Steven just used a full restore and we were forced to whittle it all the way back down again. For those of you keeping track, Steven has used 2 full restores, but we were eventually able to defeat it. Yeah, did it just hit Thunder? It somehow hit Thunder. A 70% accurate move through 6 double teams, and it manages to land. Yeah, this Aggron was an absolute nightmare. And this battle took so long. But we won, eventually. And now out comes Cradilly. Now Cradilly is already a bulking Pokemon. Rock Grass is not the best typing, but it does have decent defenses. And it opens up by using Ingrain. Now we do manage to get a burn on it right away, which not only halves its attack, but will nullify any healing that... My cat's being weird. But will manage to nullify any healing that Ingrain manages to do. And then after several turns of throwing Shadow Balls at it, hoping for a Spadef drop, one of the Shadow Balls crit, and that burn we inflicted took it out. And there's only one Pokemon standing in our way. And shockingly, Metagross proved to be the least troublesome Pokemon that Steven sent out. After a couple of Shadow Balls and some Flamethrowers, Metagross went down. Of course, it is incredibly helpful that the second Flamethrower got a burn that was able to do enough damage to pick up the KO. Was that move incredibly lucky? Yes, absolutely. Do I have any desire to redo the battle and get a victory that doesn't rely on luck? Absolutely not. This run was incredibly annoying. That battle was troublesome enough as it was. And I have no desire to redo it. Truant is by far the worst ability ever created. But I pulled it off. And Slakoth beating Steven at level 78 is probably the lowest level of any Pokemon that has beaten this challenge so far, at least that I've done. Anyway, I've played a lot of Hoenn recently, so for my next video I'm going to go over to Fire Red and solo that with Ekans. So hit subscribe, ring the little bell icon, and you'll be notified when I post that video, whenever that may happen to be. And until then, I'm Ichigo90, and I am blasting off again.